So how are you doing today? I decided to come on here and make this one just a chatting. I wanted to chat with y'all, just kind of talk about my life, some of the stuff that I've been through. So, um, I want to come on here and just speak about like some of the stuff that I've struggled with a lot in my 20s, which is like the past, just growing up, going through addictions that I'm going to talk about also, and just how my childhood was, what kind of traumatized me. Um, I don't really like to speak on certain things that have happened to me ever since I was a child, getting up to being an adult, and I've gone through a lot of trials and tribulations in my life, and I honestly don't know how I got through it without God. But I really want to come on here and just speak about a little bit about my story and just um I'm not 100% reading the Bible, going to church, but I do have a strong faith, and I do believe that a lot of things that happen to me, I always receive a blessing, and I was always being watched by God or by my guardian angel or something like that, or just blessings kept raining. But it's been a hard path for me, man. Just starting off in the foster system. It all started with my mom, me, and my two brothers. She had three boys, and I'm the oldest out of my two brothers. And by the time I had turned like 5, my mom got to a point to where she couldn't take care of us. She was out there doing what she could to survive for herself and for us. And I don't know the full story of what really happened back then, just because I was young, and I try to do some deep diving and try to talk to people who might know my story. But um, I'm just gonna put that my mom wasn't in the best mindset, and when you're young and you're out there doing whatever, even when you're a parent, you make decisions that you might regret later. So it just got to a point to where she can't keep us, and I ended up being put in the system. About 6 years old, I would say I got taken away from my mother. Um, from my father, all I remember is him being incarcerated, being in jail. I don't know how long. I don't know what he did. That was one of the last times I saw him. I eventually got fostered out of a. I ended up going into a foster home, um, which was in California. Excuse my camera on my phone, but I ended up being fostered inside. Excuse me. So I ended up being fostered inside the state of California. That was the first time. I was about 6 or 7 at this time. So I don't remember how long I ended up staying in my first foster home. Then I ended up actually moving out of California, and I ended up living in Tennessee with a white family. It was a white family. The name of the Chastains. They already had daughters. They had like 4 daughters. And whenever me and my brothers left, me and my youngest brother were actually in a foster home together. And my middle brother, he I believe he's about 3 years younger than me, but he when he was born, he was affected to where he's disabled. So he has a lot of things wrong with his brain. God bless him. So a lot in my life, when we first got into Chattanooga, Tennessee, we were together, and then it got to a point to where I just experiencing a lot of things in that house, just being a child, and just being mistreated, a lot of trauma, um, just dealing with I would say just discipline that wasn't necessary and stuff like that. But I ended up moving around a couple times. I would say when I was in elementary school, I ended up going to North Carolina. I went to a boys' home out there with my little brother. Started going to school, and when that didn't work out, I ended up going back to that same family that came and got me out of California. Then I ended up going to a boys' home by myself in Florida, and by this time, I would say I was probably hitting maybe 8 or 9, maybe even 10. I was with this white family for almost 3 years, I would say, and um, just experiencing that, being taken away from mom, and being put into the system and not understanding it because I'm so young, and then having to be forced into a family and trying to fit in. It's a lot to intake. And so I kept getting bounced around a little bit, but I ended up in Florida, Tampa Bay, Florida. There was a group home out there for boys where you can canoe, hike. It's more like outdoors. So I would say that I experienced a lot of that young, just being outside, and still to this day, I embrace that from a kid, just being active and being adventurous and things. But it was always hard having to fly on a airplane by myself at damn near 10 years old, and not having no guardian with me, having the people that are on the plane just check on me, sit me in the back, and I'm having people that work on the plane just come check on me, and it was just a lot to intake. And when I was young as a kid, I just never let it dawn on me just everything I was going to through. And living in Florida was one of the best experiences I had, just going through foster care and being in the system and all this. And I unfortunately I had to leave after probably being there for damn near a year, I would say. And when I went back to Tennessee, I came out here to Texas, which was Houston. And the lady that ended up watching me soon became my longest foster parent, I would say, because I never actually got adopted by her. I would say I was damn near about to be in about sixth grade. I was in fifth grade going into sixth, or I was in fifth grade by the time I got to her. And that was a whole different experience for me, just coming to Texas and getting out of cold, being used to snow, and then going to another white lady who actually had diverse children. And that definitely gave me a different perspective on life also. Just becoming into my preteen age and seeing kids that actually look like me and that were Mexican and white, and being being in that home, that was where a lot of destruction happened. And just it made me who I am today. But I went through a lot of bullying and being made fun of. I became overweight, just dealing with a lot of trauma. I feel like the parenting wasn't good. Um, just a lot of things that I went through, and it just made me kind of isolate myself. And I've always been the same person, just to always be kind and be nice and stuff like that. But I feel like it always came with a consequence back then, and especially being in a home just full of kids, and you know them picking on you, you always getting in trouble, just all of that. And I went through a lot, just becoming older into my teens and stuff. And then even living with that, just there was a lot of times where we couldn't afford stuff just because there were so many of us, and having to move around and financial problems. By the time I got into my freshman year of high school, I ended up eventually moving to so many schools and not being able to afford living in a home. My foster mom, she ended up getting divorced by the time I was like in eighth grade, and my foster dad got cancer and all this, and there was a lot going on in the marriage and in the household, and things were becoming toxic. So we ended up moving to San Antonio. So by the time I got here, I played football in Houston, in LaPorte, Texas. I lived there probably from like sixth grade, fifth and sixth grade, going into my freshman year in high school. So I lived a good portion. I lived a good portion of my life in Houston, Texas, for sure. I would say getting into like my preteen and teenage years, that's where I spent a lot of my years. Then I came out here to San Antonio to focus on football, to have a new start, being forced to move just because of just I don't really know, just my foster mom just going through all her trials and tribulations and trying to figure things out and being drugged with it. So by the time I came out here, I was living in a hotel for about a month, going to school. Then I eventually didn't go to school and all that. And then we ended up finding a home. It was a really nice home. I went to Ronald Reagan when I came out here at first, Ronald Reagan High School. I ended up playing football. Very nice, high class side of town. I feel like I didn't fit in. I would skip a lot of classes. Um, I got to a point to where I was upset because I didn't want to leave when I lived in Houston and coming out here to new scenery, and it's a lot of stuff. And I just got to a point to where I always felt like this, but ever since I moved to Texas, I never really liked it. I feel like I just was forced just to do what I had to do. But when I got older and stuff, I ended up moving out here, and by the time I got to I ended up going to Brandeis next. I played football, but I would say probably by that summer when I was doing 2 days and stuff, by the time the school year started, this is when I was getting into like my sophomore year. So Reagan, I wanted to play football. I probably would have been on varsity going into my sophomore year just because I worked out a lot. Even when I wasn't in school, I was running and stuff. When I got to Brandeis, I actually got taken out of school, and then things were just weird for me having to watch my siblings. And my foster mom wasn't the best parent, and I try not to speak too much on a lot of stuff that happens, but I'm just giving you a brief summary. But yeah, so academically, that was bad. And then I ended up coming to Medina Valley, where I kind of got back on track, started playing football, started making new friends, lived in a new neighborhood. And that's where I kind of started my life in San Antonio. And then I got to a point to where I was having troubles at home, just becoming of age, getting to 15, 16, and, you know, single parent, having problems with you, trying to go out with your friends. I have football, school, and stuff. Then I'm coming home, having to deal with just life. And I ended up getting kicked out. I don't know if anybody's ever faced that with any type of parent or guardian, just getting kicked out, having friends help me, this and that. What really sucked, a lot of people knew my situation, just being in foster homes and knowing like who I am and stuff, and kind of stuff that I went through, and then going to school and stuff. But it was hard, man. And then I kept bouncing back and forth, going to Houston to live with my foster dad, after he recovered from cancer and all that. So I eventually going back and forth, stayed out there. It just didn't feel right. I got to a point to where I don't know, man. Just I lived with this family for a long time, and I went through a lot of things. I, Now being older in my later 20s, just I forgive a lot of stuff that happened to me, but I held on for a while, just having a grudge, and it made me feel some type of way, all that shit. But I'll get to that in a second. But by the time I got to like my junior year, I kept bouncing back and forth. Went to Houston, came back to here to San Antonio, ended up finishing football. I got to a point to where my foster mom, we weren't seeing eye to eye, and it was getting bad to where like I had people in my neighborhood helping me, and she eventually just left. And she left Texas, and I was playing football. Ended up having some trouble with some UIL problems in high school, and they damn near filed me as homeless. I had a neighbor in my neighborhood ended up becoming my mentor, helping me out so I could finish the school year. And that was one of the worst times I went through in my life. Just going through situations, being in foster care, living with her. She's not really my mom, but she's the only one that take care of me. This is the only thing I knew family wise. And then to like, going to school and feeling like I'm trying to fit in, trying to be happy and trying to make friends. And it was just a lot, man, just going through life. Especially as a teenager, like I'm still a child just trying to navigate through all this. So I ended up not being able to play football because my guardian left and had help. So I was upset about that because I feel like I was decent enough to at least go to college and play. And I feel like my dream was shattered because I always wanted to play football. And I worked out because I was overweight, and I tried to get to a point to where I was trying to get fit, and you know that took a long time, but I ended up being able to graduate. I played a lot of catch up. I had a lot of help. That was great. I got to a point to where my mentor wasn't the best fit for me, so I had to leave. I had a friend help me, and that's where life started beginning for me, man. Just I got to a point where I had to figure it out, and I didn't really have that guidance or like family support, but I had great people help me along my journey. But just like house hopping, sleeping on couches, having friends help me, their parents help me. Just man, it was a lot, bro. Just I had people help me to where I fucked up and I wasn't getting a job or I wasn't paying and stuff like that. Just being young in my early 20s, 20, 21, 22, and still figuring out. By the time I got to 22, I feel like the smoking was crazy. Um, I was getting into drinking, going out, not really focusing on like what I wanted to do. Music was always there for me. I recorded, but I let that go, and I love music. But yeah, I went through a lot of things in my life to where I felt like I was alone, and I had friends where I thought they were supposed to be there, and it taught me a lot just about people. And I got to a point to where I felt like I always had to have my guard up because I feel like I got to a point to where I feel like I was always abandoned, and people didn't see the good in me. And like people knowing my background and stuff, I feel like I got treated some type of way, knowing that I don't have nobody there. So I went through a lot of battles like that, feeling like I should have stood up for myself at certain times, or I should have spoke up for myself, and I should have just walked away, and maybe life would have turned out differently. But I would say by the time I got to 24, 25, by the time COVID happened and living in a trap house, going to work, taking 3 buses every day, leaving that situation. By the time I would say by the time COVID hit, I think that's when life started changing. I was able to start take care of myself. I started to be able to transition through meeting people and thinking that they had my best interests, and just being young and naive and not understanding that not everybody's gonna be there for you when the time comes, or you can receive help. Don't mean that they're your friends, because anybody nice can do something for you. Doesn't mean that they love and respect you. And I had to learn that also. But I don't know, man. Um, it took me a long time to forgive everything that happened to me, and I'm still learning how to let go. And I still have moments where I want to know what happened to my mom, and I want to know where my family is, and I want to know a little background about me and myself and who else is out there. Maybe if I have more siblings, but life has been hard, man. I got addicted to alcohol, drinking, and you know, just feeling like my worth didn't mean anything. And then just smoking too, just smoking and relying on weed, just having to learn how to take a break or cut back. And I still challenge a lot when it comes just to battling my past, just everything that I went through. And right now, just being 28, I've been through a lot, but I've learned that I will never judge nobody, just because you never really know what happens through closed doors, and you never know what people go through. And that's what taught me. I learned not to judge, just because I come from a background of very diverse people, and we all come from different homes and different situations. So that taught me that too. And then just to try to give love. I went a long time in my life just going through bad, so now I'm trying to end it good. And I want to show people that, even though you're messed up, that you can still become beautiful out of that. So I know this was a lot to intake, and I know that I don't really come on here and really speak about my story. So I just wanted to come on here and really just sum it up. But that's pretty much it. Y'all have a good day.